Have you ever just looked up at the night sky, at that big, bright moon, and just wondered? I mean, for thousands of years, it was this source of myth and mystery. But for the last half century or so, it's been something else entirely. It's been a destination. And, as we're about to find out, it's also been, well, a car park.
It's a feeling that so many of us share, right? Motoring journalist Kieran Parmar, writing for Free Car Mag, really put it perfectly. That sense of awe, it's just this universal human thing. But that wonder gets even deeper when you start to realize what we've actually pulled off up there.
Yeah, you heard that right. 3 cars, just sitting up there, parked quietly for 50 years, nearly 250,000 miles away. They are humanity's very first and so far only off-world vehicles. So what exactly was this car on the moon? Well, while many people affectionately called it the moon buggy, its official name was the Lunar Roving Vehicle, or LRV for short. And its job? Well, it was simple but incredibly audacious: to give human explorers the freedom to actually travel across an alien world. I mean, just stop and think about what that really meant for a second. Before this thing came along, astronauts were basically tied to their landing spot. They could only go as far as their own 2 feet could carry them in those big, bulky suits. The LRV, well, it was a total game changer. It turned them from lunar hikers into proper geological explorers, letting them cover miles and miles of ground and completely rewrite what we thought we knew about the moon. Okay, but how on earth do you even begin to build a car for the moon? The engineering challenges were just immense. I mean, it had to be light enough to actually get there, strong enough to handle the terrain, and most importantly, so reliable that astronauts could literally bet their lives on it. Well, the solution was this incredible frame made from a super light aluminum alloy. Now get this, on Earth, the whole thing weighed just 210 kilograms. That's less than half of a modern Formula One car. But on the moon, with only 1/6 the gravity, it was a feather-light 34 kilos. And yet, it was an absolute workhorse. It could carry a whopping 490 kilograms. That's more than twice its own weight back on Earth. Just incredible. Now, as you can probably imagine, this kind of groundbreaking tech didn't come cheap. Not at all. The total bill to design and build 4 of these rovers came to $38 million. And remember, this was back in the early 1970s. A massive investment, for sure, but one that was about to pay off spectacularly. But for me, the most ingenious part of this whole thing was how they got it there. I mean, you can't exactly ship a fully assembled car to the moon, can you? So the brilliant engineers at Boeing designed it to fold up, almost like a piece of high-tech origami, into this tiny little space in the lunar module. Then once they were on the surface, the astronauts just had to pull a few ropes and pulleys and, poof, the whole thing would just spring to life, unfolding and locking itself into place all in a matter of minutes. Absolutely brilliant stuff. So what was actually powering this thing? Well, it was all electric. It had a small motor in each wheel hub, which made it a proper 4-wheel drive machine. It even had 4-wheel steering, which made it incredibly agile for getting around craters. But the wheels were something else. You couldn't use rubber, of course. It would never survive the insane temperature swings up there. So instead, they were made from this mesh of hand-woven steel wires, a clever design that gave it all the grip it needed on that fine lunar dust. Okay, so we've talked about the engineering, but what was it actually like to drive? What did it feel like sitting in the driver's seat of a car on the moon? Right. Well, first off, you can forget everything you know about driving a normal car. There was no steering wheel, no pedals. Instead, the whole thing was controlled with this single T-shaped joystick that sat right between the 2 seats. You just push it forward to go, pull back to brake, and tilt it side to side to steer. It sounds simple, but it was an incredibly smart design when you think about trying to drive while wearing those big, clumsy spacesuit gloves. Now, it wasn't exactly a speed demon. Its average speed was a pretty steady 7.5 miles per hour. But during the Apollo 16 mission, it did set an unofficial lunar speed record of over 10.5 miles per hour. Astronaut Charles Duke said the low gravity made the handling, well, a bit lively. In fact, at one point, he actually did a full 180 spin by accident. Can you imagine? But it wasn't all fun and games and setting speed records. Driving on the moon came with a very unique and very serious danger. Something that nobody had really planned for: the dust. This stuff was like a superfine abrasive powder, and it got into everything. And on the very last rover mission, Apollo 17, that dust became a massive problem. It all started when Commander Gene Cernan was moving around and accidentally caught his hammer on the rear fender, snapping a piece of it clean off. A tiny accident, but it created this huge issue. Suddenly, without that mudguard, the wheel was kicking up this massive rooster tail of corrosive dust, showering the astronauts and all their delicate equipment. This wasn't just annoying, it was dangerous. It threatened to make things overheat and cause serious failures. So what do you do? How do you fix a car when the nearest mechanic is 250,000 miles away on another planet? Well, you use the same thing you might use in your own shed. With a bit of help from Mission Control, the astronauts grabbed 4 laminated maps, clamped them together, and stuck them to the rover with, you guessed it, a roll of good old-fashioned duct tape. A brilliant, simple fix for a very, very high-tech problem.
When the time came for the missions to end, the astronauts packed up and flew home. But the rovers, they stayed right where they were, keys left in the ignition, so to speak. They became these silent monuments to an absolutely remarkable time in human exploration.
In just over a year, across 3 Apollo missions, these little buggies traveled a combined 56 miles on the lunar surface. They allow the astronauts to collect some truly groundbreaking stuff, like the famous Genesis rock on Apollo 15. This was a piece of the moon's original crust, and it helped us prove that the moon was once a molten ball of rock. See, they didn't just drive on the moon. They helped us unlock its ancient secrets.
And here's the bit that honestly gives me goosebumps every time I think about it. As Kiran Parmar points out in his article, because there's no wind, no rain, nothing to disturb the surface on the moon, those tire tracks, they're still there, today, perfectly preserved, looking like they were made just yesterday. A silent, permanent reminder that we were there.
The Lunar Rover really was a triumph of human ingenuity, wasn't it? A car designed and built for a world that doesn't even have roads. And as we now look to go back to the moon and even push on to Mars, it just leaves you with this one big, exciting question. What incredible machines will we invent next? What will be the next first car on another world? Here are a selection of NASA photographs and a few photos of the moon taken by Kiran Parmar using a Nikon digital SLR and a Celestron telescope. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed watching and subscribe to Kiran's channel.